So welcome everyone. I feel really happy to see all of your faces. A lot of faces I don't recognize and some that I do. I'm really happy that you're here with us today. So my name is Michelle Roberts and I'm the program director for the Big Leap Home online programs, which support individuals, organizations, and communities in generating agency, connection, and creativity on our shared planet. And one of our intentions and this is all housed in the Foundation for Conscious Living. And one of the intentions is to create caring communities. So our Big Leap Bridge, which is what you're a part of right now, is a space for us to engage in Hendricks practices so we can build community while we discover, play, and learn together. So I'm going to toss the call over now to Deb Glass, who is my co-host for tonight, and she's going to go over some logistics. So Deb?
Hi everyone, I'm Deb. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I feel so thrilled to have you here with us. A few logistics that will be helpful for tonight's call. Just a reminder that tonight's call will be recorded. Thanks, Michelle. So locate yourself in some space around you. So if you need to move, hop up and move freely, we encourage that. So make sure that you're in a space to be comfortable. Jot down any questions that you might have or learnings that pop up for you through the call. Marlene and Bob will make space for questions and welcome questions during the call. So feel free to drop them into the room as it comes up. We're inviting all questions and especially the juicy ones. I'd like to remind you the call is being recorded. So if you prefer to remain anonymous, you can simply direct your question to Michelle or I, and we will privately pose them into the room for you. We find that learning works best when we bring our curiosity, openness to learning, and appreciation of ourselves and others. We invite you into this commitment for this call. And because today's topic can be especially spicy for some, we invite you to see the space as safe and courageously lean into your learning edges as far as feels good for you. I now have the privilege of introducing our amazing facilitators, Marlene and Bob. They are life masters, having successfully navigated the field of loving an intimate relationship with each other for an aspirational season of time, I believe 50 years or so. We appreciate your generous sharing of your wisdom and insights with us today. And in alignment with their generosity, they will also be offering a further opportunity for attendees where they will be contributing a percentage of the funds raised to the foundation. By booking these services, you'll be supporting our facilitators, this platform, and the foundation to continue offering these incredibly valuable resources to our wider community. Bob and Marlene, as we welcome you today, can you tell us a little more about this offering before you carry on with your class? Thank you.
Yes, first of all, I do want to say our internet seems to be very unstable. We've lost it once already in this call, so bear with us. It must have something to do with being in this far the northern place called Ottawa. Yes, so we've decided to offer a weekly discussion group. We have so much content we'd love to share with you and so much that we'd like to hear from you that we thought we would just continue this kind of discussion. So you can sign up for that. We're asking for a 6-week commitment and we'll play together.
Yes, we're starting this on the 6th of July, which is a Monday.
It will be Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So I'd like to appreciate Michelle, I'd like to appreciate Deb for their technical assistance, and I'd like to appreciate the Big Leap Bridge and the Hendricks community for making this opportunity available for us.
I'd like to also appreciate all of you who are on this call with us and your interest in this particular topic, which is, of course, one of our big interests. So welcome here.
As Deb said, we've been in a committed relationship for over 50 years. And we've been playing with Hendrik's ideas since the early 90s, when we stumbled upon the book Conscious Loving and did every exercise in the book. And then 2002, when we first met Gay and Katie Hendricks and were blown away and jumped into a training program.
Yes. It was called, wasn't called OLATs those days, it was called something else. Apprentices, yes.
So before we start, we'd like to have you notice if you have a typical Zoom posture.
Yes, maybe you've been on Zoom a lot recently.
Like we have. And notice if there's something that you do in your body when you're on Zoom.
I'm starting to do it right now.
I sometimes my head goes to one side for a while, and just let yourself do whatever you do when you're on Zoom, and just notice what's going on in your body as you do that.
I'm noticing lack of breath in myself. I'm noticing a certain leaning with my neck.
And now, before that gets too painful, we're going to invite you to turn away from the screen and do something to interrupt that pattern. Move in some way. And
maybe there's a sound.
Make a sound.
We can't hear you anyway.
Do something that will interrupt your habitual Zoom pattern. Because one of the things that we've discovered is that in our sexual relationship, we have continually learned to interrupt the patterns.
So, I think everybody, after they've been together for a while, fall into patterns. It's not as if it's so bad, but we need to know what they are. And over time, things become routine. And with us, that certainly happened many times over. So the idea is, how can you change something?
Notice and make a change. You don't have to make it wrong. You don't have to make your partner wrong. You can just notice and say, wow, we've fallen into a pattern here. I wonder what would happen.
Saturday morning, 10 a.m. That's pattern. I do this, I do that, and then that's what we do.
And then I expect this, and then I expect that.
Right. Notice expectations coming up. So for us, it's important to regularly change the pattern, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. For example, just the other day, I was touching Marlene in a way which I found very pleasurable, and it was I knew how to do this. And the next step was kind of like right there in front of me. It would have been probably a good step. And I remember thinking, what if I did something just a wee bit different? And in so doing, suddenly, certain things lit up over here, and certain things lit up over here. And it wasn't so unusual, but it was a lot of fun. And it was very creative, even though it was minor.
So that would be the first thing we would invite you to remember is notice your habitual patterns and find ways to interrupt them.
And what you'll find out is be open to surprise, or as Gay always says, I'm open to infinite surprise. Yes, well, this is one of those things. Be open to this infinite surprise. And my experience is I am not disappointed. I am actually quite excited when this happens.
The second thing we'd like to tell you is that you can have a great sexual relationship by deciding to have a great sexual relationship.
You know, a lot of people don't decide. They just kind of believe that it's spontaneous, isn't it?
It should just happen, shouldn't it?
Wasn't it like that once? When we were young, it was spontaneous. You know something? It wasn't.
Even then, you planned it. You planned if you were dating. You planned that you were going to be seeing this person. You groomed yourself in a particular way. You prepared your space. If you thought maybe you would end up in a particular room in the house, you tucked away the dirty laundry. Whatever it is that you did to prepare yourself. So we're inviting you to prepare yourself, to decide, to set the intention to have a great sexual relationship and to make your sexual relationship a priority.
Now, you'll hear us say this a number of times. You need to have the conversation together.
Yeah, everyone's different in terms of, you know, you might want this and I might want that, and we want to find a way that we can both get everything we want. But the whole point is that if you make it a priority, and that does actually mean putting it in your calendar. Now, some people think, well, I shouldn't have to do that, should I? I should just, like, it should just happen. But, you know, anything that's really important these days probably gets put in your calendar. Now, you're not scheduling a specific thing. You're not scheduling intercourse or even orgasm.
Please notice that, because you're scheduling that you are going to have a space to explore this. And, well, you know, we're not going to have a whole lot of time to talk about this, but what is sex anyway? And for us, it's extremely broad. So a lot of things can happen. And if you've prepared yourself somewhat, i.e., you know, you've prepared your relationship a little bit, you're wearing something you like maybe, you've had a shower, hopefully, you've got yourself ready.
So some people think that if it doesn't just happen naturally, it's not good. So I think Bob should share his personal experience with that.
So here's an experience from 2009 when I had a cancer diagnosis, and prostate cancer. And I had treatment, and the doctor said, I'm going to be giving you a drug which will reduce your testosterone. And he looked at me and said, you will feel no desire. Now, Marlene was with me at the time, and I remember looking across the room to her, and we both had this little twinkle in our eyes, because both of us said to ourselves at the same time, and what is desire?
And let's see, let's use this as an opportunity to experiment.
Notice that word, experiment here. So, took the drug. What do you know? Reduced testosterone. Well, after a couple of months, I noticed I was not looking at the young women in the street like I used to.
And I remember when Bob said to me, you know, the world outside looks sort of gray.
But you know, she did not look gray to me. The world maybe somewhat, but Marlene not at all.
And we set the intention to explore and to maintain our sexual connection during this time.
So, in doing so, yeah, my body did not respond the way it used to at that time, but it didn't make all that much difference. I still found that I had a whole lot of attraction for her, which was beyond testosterone.
And getting started was maybe a little bit different, but we sure could still give and receive some physical pleasure during that time.
So that particular time is sort of a special time for us in how we were able to maintain a sexual connection and an emotional connection and a spiritual connection. Mind you, After 7 months, when the testosterone came back, it was pretty exciting. Testosterone's a good thing too. So
just pause to see if there's any questions. We've got lots more to share. We'll just continue on. So behind us, you might be able to see this diagram here, presence, play, connect. I can still totally remember the moment when Katie wrote that on the flip chart at a training, probably 2014. And I went, that's all I need to. So if all you remember from this training is this, presence, play, connect, and if you can apply that to your sexual relationship, you'll be on the right track. So presence, think about presence. Now, those of you who have done some deeper Hendricks training have probably heard of the term loop of awareness. And if you haven't, don't worry about it. Loop of awareness, again, I remember when Katie first brought that to our attention back in 2003. Loop of awareness is the ability to shift your attention from something inside yourself to something outside yourself. Very basic, and it was introduced to us as a facilitation tool, and it's been an invaluable facilitation tool in the work we've done with clients.
now, often people tell us, "Would you? Something's happening. Would you loop with me?" And we think that's a good thing. We are going out there and remembering them or holding them in our hearts. But we're talking right now of not only going out like this, we're also talking about back and forth, going out and in.
So right now, whether you've done this before or not, place your attention on something inside yourself. Some physical sensation, maybe some emotion. Just get curious about it, notice it, don't
change it, it's just there.
And then put your attention on something outside yourself. It might be the screen.
It might be something in the room you're in.
Might be the quality of the light. And then at your own pace, bring your attention back to yourself and out. And notice what is the best pace for you in shifting attention.
Some of us can do this quickly, easily. Others, it's slow. Slow is good.
Notice if you get stuck out and curious about what's happening out there, or whether you get stuck in here, what's happening in here. And just let yourself add curiosity to this shifting of your attention.
I notice right now that my attention is being drawn to noise in the street. And now I'm going to bring my attention back to here.
So applying this to our sexual relationship has been magic. So what we want you to do right now is to touch your own hand. So just touch your own hand, explore.
As you touch, what do you notice? Do you notice your hand that touches? Or do you notice the hand that's being touched?
And can you go back and forth between your attention on yourself as the person touching and your attention on yourself as the person being touched?
So let's take about 20 seconds, and I want you to explore with that. Just notice.
Is there a part of your hand that you can put more attention on touching? And is there a part of your hand that draws your attention to being touched?
Now, some people always tell us, oh, it's the hand touching. But a lot of others, it's the opposite. But see if you can go back and forth with this.
And is there anything that would make it more fun? To be touching or to be being touched? What could make it more enjoyable for yourself if you added in some more curiosity, if you added in some more appreciation?
I'm appreciating some of my older skin right now, actually.
And I felt the impulse to explore my arm. It's nice and warm here today, so I've got bare arms. Now I'm going to shift to touching Bob. And I'm going to see if I can stay present with myself.
Now notice this.
In the past, as soon as I would start touching Bob, I would lose touch with myself. So being able to stay present with myself and then put my attention out on him.
What I'm doing is noticing what it's like to be touched by her, but at the same time, I'm also noticing, what's going on over there?
So
I'm noticing that this part is not, it's like you do something else.
So he's giving feedback, so that's okay, it's helpful, as long as I hear it as helpful and not critical.
And notice that it's easy to hear it as critical. A lot of us, certainly with sexual touching, if we are told, do this and not that, ooh, I like that, whatever you're doing, then we say, oh, I must be making a mistake here. I must be doing it wrong. Nothing wrong here. And I'm enjoying the look on her face. I'm going over there.
And I'm remembering to touch in a way that pleases me, makes me feel good, not just in the way that makes him feel good.
Oh.
Because if I were to get into touching him in the way I thought he wanted to be touched, it would become more like work.
We have that code word called work. And occasionally Martin will say, are you working right now? And I'll say, usually, I guess so. Let me think, oh yeah.
So
I have forgotten about me.
It usually means that when I'm touching, I've forgotten to enjoy it. I've forgotten to make it fun for me, rather than trying to do what I think he wants. So paying attention to myself, paying attention to him.
That's nice right there. I'm really enjoying the amount of, what can I say? It's light. It's tingly for me.
Which might actually bring up my provoker energy and want to try some other kinds of pressure. So that brings us from presence into play. Again, thanking Katie Hendricks for this. a number of years ago, she brought a workshop to Ottawa. I think it was the very first evolutionary playground. And she wrote down on the flip chart the various kinds of play from a particular book. And I put that book in our resources on our website. But what I realized at that moment was that my play style is to provoke. And I hadn't really understood that that was a preferred play style. Now, that particular play style was not appreciated in my family of origin.
Even though just about everybody in family of origin was a provoker, by the way. But it wasn't appreciated if you provoked.
So since then, we've both learned to enjoy my provoker play style.
It took me a while because it's not my style. But not only have I learned about hers, I've learned how to do it. So I now provoke her as well in how I touch her. Sometimes I tell her that I'm teasing. My story is she really likes being told that I'm teasing her.
I think I'm so much into it at that moment I don't even notice. I'm just having fun.
So I have a different play style, my play style. And I've always had it ever since I was a tiny kid and wandered off to grandma's house along the Niagara Escarpment and my parents couldn't find me, is I'm an explorer. I do it all the time. I mean, you know, I get up in the morning and I'm off in my garden exploring. Ha-ha. But I love to explore this woman's body. And you know something? There's so many options that it's just infinite.
And after 50 years, it feels like you're still finding out new things.
I'm finding new things out on a regular occasion. And no, I'm not going to say every time I find out something new. Actually, no. But I'm open to it, and suddenly, there it is. It's something new and different. And this exploring is a way in which I check in with myself, and there's a wonderful delight in it. So, I'm having delight, and I'm looking over there, and if there's some delight happening over there, that's double delight.
So let's just stop and see if there's any questions. How are you doing? How's everybody doing out there?
Yeah, there's a question.
Okay.
What do I do if my partner never says yes when I initiate?
That is a great question. It's a question that we've had in our office a lot. So, what if your partner never says yes? Well, the first thing I would ask is, how are you asking?
Think of it this way. Many people ask by blaming. And you know, if you're blaming, or if I'm blaming, and I still followed it sometimes, I'm not likely going to get a good response with blame.
Or they might ask from the sort of poor me, victim-y place. Poor me, I haven't had any for a long time. When am I going to get me some? You know, am I going to get lucky soon? Poor me.
That is so sexy.
Like, that doesn't turn me on. It's not an invitation. It doesn't make me want to have sex with you. So that's it's a great thing to start.
Yeah. Or I make a demand. You never want sex. I want it all the time.
I'm always ready. We've heard that one too.
Don't believe it.
The person who says they're always ready
don't believe it.
is not always ready. I would put money down that if you think you're always ready, there will be a time when you're not ready. In fact, we had one person who was so believing that this person was always ready, but then every time when their partner initiated, Well, now I'm going to be angry at you for what you did.
You had that affair 5 years ago, you know.
So, yeah, how are you asking? So then the next thing to do is to have the conversation about what would make yes possible. So, whole body listening. There was a great handout recently that came out through the Hendricks Institute. I think there's a couple of people that are on this call who had something to do with it. Being willing to listen with your whole body, not hearing it as blame, but what would make yes more possible.
And how can this be a team? You know, for some people, of course, sex is a single thing, but which is fine, that's great. But we like it as a team sport. And therefore, what would make it yes is something that hopefully we can play with. And we used that word earlier called experiment. Okay? Experiment is a really good thing here. You try something and see where it goes.
And it's not goal-oriented.
Let's go there.
Goal-oriented sex sucks.
How do we know? We done it.
Not worth it.
No.
Not worth
No.
it. You know, so forget about trying to get somewhere. Stay with the exploration of what would be more delicious right now.
And for us, a sexual exchange is about giving and receiving pleasure. And it's pleasure in touch, but there's also pleasure in connection. And there's pleasure in the play. In fact, play by its nature is pleasure.
So remember, presence, play, connect. The kind of conversations that will make your partner more interested in exploring giving and receiving pleasure are the conversations that are actually vulnerable. And there needs to be safety, and there needs to be some risk-taking.
Notice that both of those can be in the same room, okay? A lot of people think, oh, safety is the big thing, and it's very important. But safety without risk-taking gets to be boring after a while. So you gotta play, and play by its nature is risk-taking.
So there needs to be just enough safety to be willing to take those risks. And there needs to be that openness that you can reveal to me something that maybe you've been scared to say, and I'm just going to hear it. And even though it might bring up a whole bunch of feelings for me, I'm okay. I can hear what you're saying because I can hold my own feelings, and I know that I will have an opportunity to share them with you. So we connect. Now, there's this other thing that people get caught on. It's a very common thing to have polarization around, I can't have sex with you unless I feel emotionally connected with you.
But just a minute, I can't be emotionally connected with you unless I have sex with you.
And so when people polarize around that, they're into that either or. We need this first.
No. I need this. You never want what I want here.
The point is, you need both.
You know, it was a great thing to find that out, I don't know how many years ago, that both are good. I mean, Katie always says it's yes, right? It's both. Well, it is.
Changing either or to and.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, connection. Physical connection, emotional connection, spiritual connection, intellectual connection, presence, play, connect.
Marlene and Bob, I've got a fantastic question that'll lead right into this, which is, hang on a sec, I'm going to pull it up. It says, my partner and I often have different speeds or paces of play style. He is faster than mine, and sometimes I get scared and angry. What would you suggest?
Oh, great
Wonderful
question. Yes. So pace is such a really juicy topic, and I understand there's a video or a class on the restoring resourcefulness about pace, exploring finding your essence pace. So that's a great topic. So yeah, there's going to be a pace difference.
How do we know? I think everybody that we see in our office, including us, has a pace difference. It's just the nature of two people.
So the first thing you do is you don't make it wrong. You play with it. So how can we play with pace when it comes to giving and receiving touch? Can we, I mean, you know, there's a variety of things you could do. You could even play with 5 minutes of your pace and 5 minutes of my pace and see what happens. You could play with, what if I went at my pace and you went at your pace? And I really exaggerated my pace and you went faster at your pace. And I think I would like start to get all tingly and respond in some way. In fact, I have goosebumps right now, just from that little bit of play. So I think it's about, the key there, Deb, is not making it wrong.
I'm going to say a few other things here. Number one, often, not always, men see themselves as fast-paced in a lot of ways when it comes to sex. And there's all kinds of things that have been written about how horrible men are about this. But the thing is, I think we all need to know that women generally are slower in their pace of arousal. That isn't a rule, but that's often the case. And there's been research done on this. So, you know, if we're going to talk about orgasm, you know, men can come in a minute at least, right? Or less.
But really, is that the kind of orgasm?
But is that what you want? Women tend to take longer. And, you know, their juicy sexual parts have so many more options to it.
So many more nerve endings.
Yeah, so it often takes longer.
Playing with that.
And playing with that is exquisite, actually. To just assume, let's take time. Even though I am a fast person this way, and I no longer am, I was, but slow it down. And it just gets so much more enjoyable. You want to say something else about that?
Great. There's we have another question. Is this a good time for that? So there's a question about, I think these two, maybe you could answer one after the other. So one is, how do you get over consciousness of aging bodies and physical disabilities that come and go? And then another one was low libido post-menopause. So if you could speak to both of those.
I want to talk to the whole menopause thing first.
Yes, that's a good thing to talk about.
And I would highly recommend, there's just about 10 pages in Christian Northrup's Wisdom of Menopause, which is exquisite about this.
It's on our website.
The reference is on our website. The pages are on our website. I just get so excited. I get really fast when I want to tell people about this. That what the research shows is that it's not the hormonal things that happen in menopause. It's the perception of what's going to happen in menopause, which is linked with body image, how people see us, you know, as our hair gets gray and our skin gets less elastic. I can tell you that when we're giving and receiving pleasure, my body doesn't feel old. When I'm walking outside in the heat and trying to get my exercise, I can feel old. I'm over 70. But when we're touching, that just all falls away.
So for many years, I've had this, I don't know, it's a perception. I think the Greeks called it the glamour of the gods. And it's when I'm engaged in sexual activity, she's the goddess and I'm the god. And, you know, time has nothing to do with it. How old my body is has nothing to do with it. It's just beautiful the way it is right now.
So the thing is, if you're going through menopause and you're noticing some changes, I mean, you may need to get some medical intervention. You may need to explore good lubricants, and you know, we know which ones we like, and you can have.
And lubricants are wonderful sexual toys as well.
But the whole thing is to look at this as an opportunity for deciding, rather than letting the hormones drive you, you get to be in charge. You get to decide how you want to approach this. So I think the other question was about disability. There's this whole issue around pain. Bob mentioned a cancer diagnosis and how we navigated that. By the end of his treatment, he couldn't even walk around the block. And so one of the things that we highly recommend is using anything like that as an opportunity to think outside the box.
In fact, research has shown that people who have disabilities and then think outside the box sexually can come up with wonderful optional different ways of touching and enjoying it.
One of the books that we're recommending, it's on our website, is by Dr. Peggy Kleinplatz from Ottawa, who did research on people who had self-identified as having great sex, and was blown away by finding out partway through the research how many people had some form of physical disability, like one person had COPD and they hadn't known it, like just a lot, and that actually these things had helped them look outside the box of their regular sexual experience and find new ways to give and receive pleasure.
And these are people who all self-identify as having magnificent sex.
So one thing I don't want to forget to talk about is how we sabotage our sexual pleasure. So again, if you've been in the Hendricks community for a while, you've heard about the upper limit pattern. So the upper limit pattern, and if you haven't heard about this, we've got an article on our website, we've got a graph about this on our website. So the upper limit pattern is this thermostat setting that we all have of our ability to feel pleasure, to feel good, to feel connected. And when we go too close to our thermostat setting, we do something unconsciously to bring ourselves back down. And sex is one of the biggest places where this happens, because sex, by its very nature, brings us up closer to our thermostat setting.
And it's a very vulnerable place to be, and great sex feels so amazing. Can I live in that level for long?
So we had fight after fight after fight, which happened after a period of closeness in terms of sexual giving and receiving pleasure. Often when we were on a holiday together, and then we would end on this absolutely horrible, highly dramatic note. And we couldn't figure out what had happened. Like maybe we shouldn't go on holidays together anymore. And we've had people say that in our office.
Oh, we have.
Until we realized that all we were doing was we were bumping up against our thermostat setting. And that's actually a good thing.
So for us, it's a really good thing to notice. And
it still happens.
Yes.
It happened the other night.
Yeah. And what was really good was for me to say the next day, I don't understand why that happened. And think, you know, was that an upper limit? We had such a wonderful sexual experience yesterday. And then suddenly I criticize you just before we go to bed. I'm smarter than that, aren't I? No, I'm not. Anyway, so there it was. And it was like, okay, that's really no big deal. It's just, that's what happens sometimes when, right now even, I go above my setting about how much joy and love and pleasure I can take.
Now, the other thing that it took us a while to figure out, and I don't know if anybody else has ever talked about this, we call it the preemptive upper limit pattern.
Or pulp.
That's when we preemptively create drama to make sure that we don't have connection, sexual pleasure, whatever.
I think a lot of people do it. And, you know, I remember back in the late 80s, when the kids were old enough that they could do their own thing on Friday night, we both had high pressure jobs, and we'd say, oh, wow, we're going to have a nice meal together, going to open up a bottle of wine, and we're going to have sex. Well, at least I said we were going to have sex. I don't know what she said those days, but maybe she did too. I probably wasn't listening. Anyway, I remember opening the bottle of wine.
And then I'd say something like, you probably want sex, don't you?
I did.
Well, I did too, but you know, I wasn't.
But she said it like that.
And so I remember one time saying to my desk mate at work, you know, Bob and I have had a fight every Friday night for the last 6 months. Oh, we were sabotaging, even before we got there, our possibility for sexual connection. So I'm recognizing the time, and we're getting out of time. We've got so much more we could say. Any last questions that just need burning to be answered?
Yeah, there's definitely some more questions. Let me see. One was, can you give some examples of sex fun that isn't intercourse or orgasm? And the other was, what types or styles of play are there besides provoker and explorer?
Well, the types or styles of play, I'd have to look up. It's in the book.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The name of the book is on the resources in our website, and I can put it in the on the Facebook page.
And we lent the book out. It's not returned.
No. It's on my Kindle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's on a Kindle.
Okay, so things to do instead of intercourse and orgasm. Well, just touching, licking, playing, teasing, tickling. Oh my God, like just even ears, hair. Do you like having your hair touched? I find it very, very, very stimulating to have face.
And we do something called face painting. Face painting is exploring your partner's face as if you were painting the picture of her or him.
Eye contact, having a bath together, while doing some of these things. We do this thing called super resonance, which is Gay Hendricks taught us, which is basically paying attention to what's happening in my body. Like, I notice that my forehead is slightly damp right now.
I notice that I've got lots of heat right across the top of my chest.
So without even touching each other, we're starting to connect to our bodies and our bodies are starting to light up.
We used to use our cell phones and call each other from rooms next door to each other and tell each other what we wanted to do. It used to be such fun.
Used to be.
Haven't done it for a while.
Well, let's do it.
Okay, let's do that one. Yeah.
Lots of play. Rough and tumble play. That's another thing that we highly recommend. Play wrestling. It's actually sort of one of the things that will help me sleep if I'm having difficulty falling asleep, is getting out some of that aggressive energy and trying to pin him. And of course, you know, he's stronger than I am, but boy, it feels really good when I get on top of him and get him pinned.
Somehow she loses her clothes in doing this.
Not always. We have to have an agreement.
Yeah. Well, I like it that way. Anyway, so there are so many ways in which we can play. Yes, and the rough and tumble play is something that people often don't think of. I mean, when we were young, we often rough and tumble play with our siblings.
Playing with blindfolds, playing with sensory things, food, fur, sounds,
feathers,
smells.
Items from the kitchen.
Dancing, that's one of my favorites.
We do enjoy dancing in our bedroom, and it might lead to something else, and it might not. Any other, we have room for another question yet? It seems like we're getting close here.
Hi, yeah, we've had a question, and perhaps the person may wish to clarify this a little for us. It was, does the person who always says no to bids for sex ever initiate? And is it a control issue or a no sex issue?
Well, the whole initiating thing is a big issue, but it's actually a red herring. It's not a sexual issue. It's an issue about something else in the relationship that may need to be unpacked. It might be a control issue. It might be anger. Anger is one of the major turnoffs for people in terms of sexual desire. The whole thing about initiating, we find it helpful to think about issues around initiating outside of the sexual realm. Like, who initiates when you're hungry? Who says, you know, I want to eat? And if your partner says, I want to eat, and you're not hungry, do you have conflict? What happens? You know, who initiates going for ice cream, for instance? Today we had a wonderful walk to our local ice cream place. And Stella Luna, I just love it. It's one of the best places in the world. Anyway, so, you know, but the conversation around initiating ice cream could be like, well, you never want to go for ice cream. Why do you never want to go for ice cream? What's the matter with you? Do you not like ice cream anymore? You don't like ice cream with me, right?
I like ice cream a lot.
Yeah, well, how come you never want to have ice cream?
Right now, I'm working on the computer.
Yeah, you're always working on the computer. You never want to have ice cream. Now you're gonna go find somebody else to have ice cream with.
Well, there you go. And the thing is, there are so many ways in which we can sort of look at what's the pattern that's happening and get a little deeper behind what that pattern's all about. And how can you change that slightly?
And how can you do some whole body listening to your partner about it? What's that about? Can you tell me more? Oh, sounds like maybe you're angry about something? Tell me about that. I'd like to know more about what is it that gets in the way?
Well, you know, maybe I do want to have sex. or maybe I want to have ice cream. And when I think about it for a minute, I want it. But when I'm suddenly hit with it, I get scared. There's a whole lot of options here. And another thing might be, well, we've done this with people, why don't you take turns initiating? You know, put it on your calendar. You're going to have some kind of sexual experience together. Who knows where it's going to go? But it's my job to say, it's on the calendar. It's 8 o'clock. Kids are in bed.
Or some people say, let me know a half an hour ahead of time. Remind me a half an hour ahead of time. I can get myself prepared. I'm noticing the time.
Yes. What a lively class. I can't believe this hour has gone by already. So I want to remind everybody, I'm going to pop it in the chat here about Marlene and Bob's wonderful offering for a discussion group for couples. So I put that in the chat there. You can just jot down, it's easy to remember, marleneandbob.com. So
Either one.
Bob and Marlene or Marlene and Bob, yep, .com. And yeah, you can contact them there. So Bob and Marlene, thank you so, and Marlene and Bob, thank you so much for this incredible class. I really appreciate both of you, your honesty and your openness and your playfulness, really appreciating. So I'll turn it back over to you to close the call out, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Well, I invite you all to unmute and lean right into your screen and just look around at the people that showed up here today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Great job, neighbors.
Thanks a lot. That was fun.